The smile that hid his scars, the untold pain behind Menglong'S last goodbye. There are smiles that light up a room, and then there are smiles that hide a storm. For years, Menglong's smile was one of the most beloved in the Chinese entertainment world. Gentle, warm, and seemingly untouched by sorrow. Fans saw in him the picture of perfection, the charming actor, the soulful singer, the man who seemed to have everything. But behind that carefully drawn smile was a story no one truly knew, a story of quiet pain, of loneliness disguised as grace, and of a final goodbye that the world never saw coming. Menglong, known for his elegance and emotional depth, lived a life that seemed wrapped in success. From his breakout roles in popular dramas to his heartfelt songs that moved millions, he was the kind of artist people looked at and thought, he must be so happy. But those who looked closely, really closely, might have seen the flicker in his eyes, the subtle pauses between his laughter, the way his smile sometimes seemed too perfect, too rehearsed. Behind every red carpet grin was a man quietly battling himself, carrying emotional scars that time refused to heal. Friends and colleagues often described Menglong as gentle, humble, and deeply thoughtful. He rarely spoke about his private life, preferring instead to express himself through his work. And perhaps that was where the truth lay, in the lyrics of his songs, in the trembling emotion in his voice, in the way his characters seemed to bleed pain. Many of his fans now replay those moments with a different understanding. They see it now, the way his performances were not just acts but cries hidden in art. His sadness wasn't a story, it was a heartbeat that people ignored because it was easier to believe in his smile. There were whispers among those closest to him about a heartbreak that changed him. A love that ended not with anger, but with silence. They said he carried that wound like a shadow, one that followed him no matter how bright the spotlight became. Some said he never healed from it, that it became part of him, a quiet ache that he turned into music and performance. But pain, when left unspoken, does not vanish. It grows, it lingers, it carves deep marks that smiles cannot hide. The entertainment industry, as dazzling as it seems, can be a lonely place. Fame, applause, and admiration come at a cost few understand. Menglong was known for his professionalism, always early on set, always polite, always smiling. But that same dedication often left him isolated, trapped in a world where he gave everything, yet received little of what he truly needed: peace. Behind the cameras, the schedules, and the endless rehearsals, he faced a silence that felt heavier each day. People close to him began noticing small changes. He grew quieter. His once lively presence became subdued. He smiled less, but when he did, it seemed more forced, as if he was wearing it to protect others from the truth. He was too kind. One close friend said quietly, he didn't want anyone to worry. He thought keeping his pain hidden was the best way to protect the people he loved. That was the kind of man Menglong was, selfless even in his suffering. He turned his sadness into art, his loneliness into stories, his tears into songs that healed others even as he remained broken. To the world, he was light. To himself, he was fading. On the night of his final goodbye, those who knew him said he seemed calm, too calm. There was a serenity about him that didn't fit the pain he had carried for so long. Some now say it was the calm that comes when someone decides to stop fighting. In his last messages to close friends, there were no dramatic words, no signs of despair, just gratitude, love, and gentle reminders to take care. It was as if he was already saying goodbye without saying the word. Fans would later flood social media with messages of disbelief. Videos of his laughter, his performances, his most touching scenes. Everything resurfaced like pieces of a puzzle they were trying to make sense of. How could someone who smiled so brightly be in so much pain? One comment read. Another said, he taught us to love, but maybe we forgot to ask if he felt loved too. The truth is, people often see what they want to see. They saw the fame, the success, the beauty, and they assumed it meant happiness. They didn't see the sleepless nights, the pressure to always be perfect, the inner battles, fought in silence. They didn't see the way he would sit alone in his dressing room after a performance, staring at the mirror as if searching for the version of himself he lost somewhere along the way. Menglong's story is not just about one man's pain. It's about how society glamorizes strength and overlooks struggle. It's about how we applaud the people who make us feel good but forget to ask how they feel. It's about how a smile can hide an ocean of sorrow. His death is a haunting reminder that even the brightest stars can burn out quietly while the world keeps watching, believing they are still shining. Some say his greatest role was his final one, the act of hiding his suffering behind a smile, so convincing it fooled even those closest to him. But perhaps it wasn't an act at all. Perhaps it was his way of surviving, of protecting the image that everyone expected from him. In a world that demanded beauty, perfection, and charm, he gave it every day until it consumed him. In the days following his passing, fans across the world held vigils, lit candles, and played his songs on repeat. His music, once filled with bittersweet love and longing, now sounded like letters from beyond. Each lyric felt like a confession, each melody like a memory he left behind. There were videos of fans crying, holding up posters that read, "We saw your smile, but now we know your pain." Others wrote, "You didn't leave us. You just went where the pain couldn't reach you." His story spread beyond borders. People began to talk about mental health, about how fame can isolate even the warmest hearts. They began to share their own hidden pains, inspired by the truth that had come too late. Menglong's name became more than just a celebrity. It became a symbol of what happens when we hide too well, when we smile to survive instead of to heal. Even now, months after his passing, fans still write messages to him online. "Are you smiling now?" they ask. "Does it hurt less where you are?" There's something profoundly human in those words, something that echoes the love and regret of a world that lost him too soon. Menglong's final goodbye was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, soft, like everything he was. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted peace. The smile he left behind was beautiful, but now we know it was also the most tragic thing about him. And maybe that's what makes his story so unforgettable. Because in a world obsessed with appearances, he reminded us that beauty can be broken, that light can come from pain, and that sometimes the brightest smiles are the ones that hide the deepest scars. So the next time you see someone smiling, remember Menglong. Remember the way his laughter touched hearts, and the way his silence now speaks louder than any song. Remember that behind every perfect face may live a story untold, a wound unseen, a goodbye unspoken. Because Menglong's final lesson was not in his music, nor in his fame. It was in his humanity. A gentle reminder that even the strongest souls need someone to ask, "Are you really okay?" The world remembers his smile, that soft, comforting curve of the lips that could calm storms in the hearts of fans. But what the world didn't know was that behind every radiant smile Menglong shared, there was a quiet war, an invisible battle between the man the world adored and the man who stared back at him in the mirror every night. As fame wrapped its golden chains around him, Menglong became a prisoner of perfection. Every glance from the crowd, every camera flash, every "I love you" scream from fans was both a blessing and a weight. He had to remain flawless, charming, gentle, the image everyone needed him to be. Yet, in the privacy of his lonely nights, when the noise faded and the lights dimmed, he faced a silence so heavy it pressed on his chest until he could hardly breathe. His apartment, once a space filled with music and laughter, became an echo chamber of memories. The walls carried whispers of old songs, of laughter shared with someone who once made him feel alive. That love, his quiet, forbidden love, was the beginning of both his joy and his downfall. She had been his muse, the woman whose smile made his world brighter, but whose absence left him hollow. When she left, she didn't take his love with her. She left it bleeding inside him, festering into sorrow that fame could never heal. Those close to him noticed a change after that. He stopped talking about the future. He worked harder, pushing himself beyond exhaustion. On set, he was still the perfectionist, focused, polite, and uncomplaining. But when the cameras stopped rolling, his gaze drifted, lost somewhere only he could see. One night, a fellow actor recalled walking past Menglong's dressing room and hearing soft humming, a tune that sounded both familiar and heartbreakingly sad. He wasn't practicing, the actor said later. He was remembering. Inside that small room, with a mirror reflecting his tired eyes, Menglong sang not for an audience, but for a memory he couldn't let go of. People often said he had the kind of eyes that could speak. And perhaps that was true, because they were eyes that carried the weight of unspoken pain. During interviews, he was always gentle, deflecting questions about his personal life with grace. "I just want to focus on my work," he would say with a smile. But behind those words was an exhaustion that no one noticed, a yearning for someone to look past the surface and see him, not the star, but the human being underneath. He often spent hours writing late at night. Lines from his notebook later found their way into his songs, melodies that spoke of loss, longing, and silence. Fans thought they were beautiful. They didn't realize they were pieces of his soul laid bare, messages wrapped in melody, confessions too painful to say aloud. There was one note, found after his passing, tucked between the pages of an unfinished song. It read, "They say the world loves me, but do they love me when I'm not smiling?" It wasn't a farewell, it was a question, a cry for understanding. Those who knew him say the last few weeks of his life were eerily calm. He spent time with friends, made calls he hadn't made in months, sent small messages of gratitude. He smiled more, but it was different, lighter, as if he was finally letting go of something heavy. None of them realized that he was saying goodbye. One of his closest friends remembers that night vividly. They had met for dinner, laughing like old times. Menglong had ordered his favorite dish, joked about how he'd been too busy to cook, and even shared plans about new music he wanted to release. It felt normal, the friend said. But when he hugged me goodbye, it was longer than usual. He held on a few seconds more. I didn't know that would be the last time. When the news broke, the world stopped. Social media erupted in disbelief. Hashtags flooded timelines. Hashtag remember Menglong. Hashtag the smile that hid his scars. Hashtag you will be missed. Fans from around the world wept, replaying his videos, his interviews, his songs, searching for signs they had missed. Suddenly, every lyric, every glance, every pause in his voice took on new meaning. There were reports of fans standing outside the studios where he had filmed his dramas, holding candles, and singing his songs softly into the night air. Others wrote letters, posting them online as if he could still read them. "You healed us with your art," one message said. "We just wish someone healed you too." Behind the beauty of his fame, Menglong had carried the unbearable loneliness of being misunderstood. He was surrounded by people, but still utterly alone. Every day he smiled for millions, yet no one saw the tears that fell once the crowd disappeared. It's a cruel truth of the entertainment world, where applause becomes a drug and silence becomes unbearable. The tragedy of Menglong's story isn't just his death. It's the quiet suffering that led him there. The signs were there, hidden in plain sight. The weariness behind his smile, the fragility in his laughter, the emotion in his performances that felt too real to be acting. But we, as the audience, were too captivated by his brilliance to notice his breaking. Now, in the aftermath, his legacy feels heavier, deeper. His smile, once a symbol of charm, is now a symbol of fragility. His songs, once about love, now sound like whispers from a soul that wanted peace. His silence, once seen as mystery, is now understood as pain. People continue to visit the places he loved. They leave flowers, letters, small gifts. One fan wrote, "We see you now. We see the pain you hid. Rest, Menglong. You don't have to smile anymore." There's something haunting about how someone so loved could feel so unseen. Perhaps that's the message Menglong left behind, not of despair but of truth. A reminder that the people who seem the strongest, who smile the brightest, are often the ones fighting the hardest battles. If only someone had looked past his smile that day, past the perfection he carried like armor. Maybe they would have seen the scars he was too afraid to show. Maybe they would have told him that he didn't have to be perfect, that it was okay to fall apart. But the world only saw the light, never realizing how much darkness it took to make it shine. Yu Menglong's story will forever echo through the hearts of those who loved him. A beautiful, tragic melody of a man who gave everything, but kept his pain locked away. His smile will remain immortal, his art eternal, and his memory a bittersweet reminder. Sometimes the kindest souls are the ones who hurt the most. And though he is gone, the question he left behind still lingers in the air, soft but piercing. Would you still love me if I stopped smiling?